Hello, I'm Mark Knorr, and welcome to Talking Inspiration, a series for campaign in which I interview leading figures from the creative and marketing industries and ask them what inspires them and why. Today my guest is Rory Sutherland, Vice Chairman of Ogilvy and May the UK, raconteur, creative, TED lecturer, and all-round good egg. Rory, welcome.
Thank you very much. I had my hair cut for this, you know.
Oh, I feel honoured. Rory, where do you get your inspiration from?
It's interesting. One of the reasons I'm so glad I went into this business is that you can draw inspiration from anywhere. In other words, what's quite useful about being a copywriter or anybody in advertising is that sitting in a cafe, watching people, listening to people on a bus, riding on a train, reading a book on behavioral science, reading a book about Darwinian psychology, virtually anything you do can make you better at your job. I mean, if you're an actuary, you have actuarial shit, reading actuarial tables or extraordinary tedious trade magazines, I imagine, which make you better at your job, and everything else is just something else. Whereas the great thing, also the tiring thing about this business, is virtually anything you look at or investigate or study can be a source of inspiration.
Homework is endless.
Yeah, there's no end to your homework at all, no. But the other thing is that actually what I think we can do in advertising much more of is we've tended to bifurcate this thing, which is there's science, which is stuff like accountancy and numbers and money, and then there's us, which is art. And I think that's a false dichotomy. That what we do is can actually learn a huge amount from science, just not that kind of science. It's not Newtonian physics, it's not spreadsheets, it's not neoclassical economics. But if you take what are sometimes called the soft sciences, Darwinian evolution, for example, behavioral economics, anthropology, psychology, neuroscience, I think we've got an enormous amount to learn from those.
Is there anywhere in particular at the moment that you're looking for inspiration, or any particular areas that are helping you with whatever it is you're working on at the moment?
One of them is that if you look at people's behaviour, what seems to be the case is we all play games. I mean, nearly everybody plays some sort of competitive game of some kind. And what seems to be the case is that the brain, or the unconscious brain, is much more of a game theorist than we realise. So there's this whole thing that fascinates me, which is how brands work and why people pay a premium for them. And the reason is that it's a kind of game theoretic instinct, which is someone with an expensive reputation that they've built up over many, many years at vast expense, through advertising, through delivering good products, through basically being trustworthy and reliable, has a huge amount to lose by selling you a piece of shit to make a one-off quick buck. Whereas a bloke you just met in the pub has virtually nothing to lose and everything to gain by selling you a piece of shit for a quick buck. So instinctively, we seem to be using that, what you might call reputational game theory. What has this guy got to lose by ripping me off? Now, if you look at things like eBay, one thing that fascinates me on eBay is that the people who have a high rating, 100% rating, sell at an enormous premium to people who have a 96, 97% approval rating. Now, if you believe that everybody behaved like rational economists would have you believe, what people would say is, well, he's only 97% reliable, but the product's 8% cheaper. So on balance, it makes sense. Virtually no one thinks like that. Conventional economists, behavioral economics has a really important lesson to teach, which is all the stuff you assume it may be wrong and is a dangerous thing to assume as if it's an axiom. I think there are two lessons in behavioral science for marketers, which is one, when people come to you and assume things, that people will behave, in a particular way, push back. But the second one is also not only to question classical economic theory, but also to question research. Because what seems to be the case is people do not themselves know many of the mechanisms they're using when they make a decision. Now, the fact that most of our decision-making processes are actually beyond conscious access seems to put quite a lot of research at a dangerous angle, because what seems to happen is people do things acting on a heuristic toolbox, and then having done them, the rational brain constructs a post-rationalization to make sense of the action in retrospect.
Indeed.
To avoid cognitive dissonance and to make ourselves look cool, and to make ourselves look intelligent.
Rory, I have a final question for you. I invited you to bring on an object that inspires you. What did you bring?
I brought the Stirling engine, which I was given. It's been ticking away, running simply off the heat out of 2 cups of tea. And this was my leaving present when I was president of the IPA, but it's one of my favourite things. And it works. It was invented by a clergyman in Scotland who, I think in the early 19th century, possibly late 18th, had lost 6 of his parishioners in a boiler explosion and wanted a safer form of power. It's such a beautiful idea that actually I think it's just waiting to be reinvented.
Interface design, cheese, earthworms, game theory, democracy. Sounds like an interview with Rory Sutherland. Thank you very much.
A pleasure. Anytime. Thanks very much.